those who don't have it, we have a few people right here who can give you the sheet. So I'll request anyone who has not got this piece of paper, please collect from our colleagues right here. We will do a small quiz at the end of this talk, and then we can kind of visit this again. So my name is Maksud, and I'm here to talk about how can we improve the unit economics for our manufacturing processes. I represent an organization called ThreadSolve. We are based out of Singapore, and we work with the manufacturers and the brands around the globe to help them save cost at the manufacturing side. Now, I'm a pure tech guy. I've spent most of my life writing softwares and stuff. And what has happened over the period of times is that I ran a pretty nifty software company in San Francisco. And I came back from there in 2010, 11 and started this company called ThreadSolve. And the objective for us is to actually see how we can impact the manufacturing sector and how we can help the manufacturers and the brands mostly to reduce their cost of manufacturing. All right, I must have caused a lot of excitement among the people, but that's all right. We'll try to go with whatever we got. So let's just quickly delve into this. Look, Bangladesh definitely is one of the largest manufacturing hubs right now for sure, and its progress has been really interesting over the last couple of years. And what's happened is that it has now come to a stage in which denim has come to the forefront for the manufacturing sector for Bangladesh. And it's actually a very interesting site because denim is a pretty difficult thing to work with. It's got loads of issues with respect to shrinkage variations, shape variations, different kinds of recipes for your washing and stuff. It's a complicated garment, right? From that perspective, and those who think that Bangladesh has not been a place where the manufacturing has come down to because of its expertise, well, they're wrong, because we're handling denim every day, and it's not an easy thing to handle denim. It speaks a lot about our capability as this country, which has gone leaps and bounds in terms of handling technology and delivering quality products. It's become one of the largest export to Europe and to US for the denim industry for sure, which is a great news for this industry. And look around, this excitement and this noise is basically a reflection of the excitement this industry generates right now. All right, so so the point is that today in EU and also in the US, Bangladesh denim continues to be one of the largest presence holders. That's a great thing, and I'm sure this in the period of time this is upon us. We should definitely do better and probably improve our share in the market as well. And there are 400 factories right now which are producing 180 million pieces of denim, which is just phenomenal. I mean, it's not. So like I always said, those who think that Bangladesh is a place for cheap labor, they haven't seen the factories enough. They haven't seen the capabilities in this country enough. I mean, this is definitely one of the most interesting places to do manufacturing right now in the world. So let's move on from here today. But there is a small problem that actually I can very clearly see, and I'm sure most of you guys can also appreciate that. The fact that Bangladesh is not really a cotton manufacturing country per se. So we basically import a lot of our cotton from outside, which basically adds to lots to our import bill. Now the point is that if in the times to come, if we want to come to a stage in which we are basically doing a larger export, it will also mean that we will have to ensure that we have to import more of this cotton, which will mean that our import bills and our bills for our fabric and everything is not going to go down smaller anytime very soon. And that's definitely one of the cases which have to be borne into mind, which is a very important discussion pointer for us today itself. So that's the story. We are growing, that's great, but we're growing also at the cost that we have to import a lot of our fabric and cotton from outside. If we move on from here, this is the reason why the problem that we see is important to solve. Like all the manufacturers who are here right now, for them their biggest cost is the fabric cost. And if this biggest cost of theirs is going to be served from an overseas import structure, that's not the most sustainable and the most desirable fashion in which this industry can probably achieve its sustainable growth and its perspectives in times to come. Now, it's a very, very interesting, aggressive targets that we all hear. If Bangladesh will become a $50 billion exporter by 2021, denim takes a pretty big share of the whole cake, $7 billion. And that's a pretty big number if you look at it right now. The point is that this growth has its own challenges, and those challenges have to be understood and appreciated and mitigated at all stages. And these are the kind of platforms which are extremely important with respect to building the image for Bangladesh's denim and also for its technology consumption awareness. So, Mr. Mustafa, you deserve a lot of thanks and a lot of credit for creating this, because I tell you what, gentlemen, it's not easy to create a brand. I grappled with that day in, day out for the last 3 years. I tell you, it's not an easy job to do, so a lot of credit to you, sir. It's a great job done. But let's look at the challenges here, right? The challenges that we have first is that if tomorrow we're going to import and add more fabric costs to our already input costs that are already rising, we're looking at actually ensuring that our profits are continuing to be under threat. So simply put, if I continue to consume so much fabric, which would mean that we will continue to buy so much fabric, which would mean that our profit margins would forever remain under this pressure of this, import of fabric and buying fabric and everything else. You definitely need to worry about that as an organization and as a country, because it's very important for sustainability of the business in the country as well. So that's one of the important parts. The stressed inputs costs are not going to go any smaller because of the higher fabric bill, and let's solve for that. So if you look at the way it has been, actually your competition is not Dhaka versus Chittagong, okay? That's just probably Premier League cricket. Don't worry about that too much. Your competition actually is with Vietnam and China and India and all these countries. Now, a couple of these countries actually have the natural defense of having their own, manufacturing for fabric, which is reasonably self-sustainable, something which we probably have to get to in times to come. But the point is that all of these other countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines, China, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh is a competition to Bangladesh at all points of time. And we work in all these 13 foreign countries on a daily basis. Mexico has also come up very nicely on this side. The point is that you are competing on a global stage with people who are moving very fast. They understand the fact that the peninsula to grow their business and become bigger is to reduce their costs very quickly, and that's what they're doing. So we as a country and as a manufacturing community have to respond to this pretty quickly. Otherwise, it's going to be our blood which will be on the streets. We don't want that, do we? So, the point is that, the best way to move forward and to get more business to concentrate into Bangladesh would be to actually lower our costs that we are asking for every garment. But if we lower our per piece cost, which is what we are charging to our buyers, it would mean that our margins would also hemorrhage at the same time. So, yes, it's important to remain cost conscious because all the other countries we are talking about, like Vietnam and China and stuff, they are trying to reduce their cost of manufacturing and passing it on to the buyers. So we have to respond, but we also have to ensure that by doing so, we should not get to a point in which we hemorrhage our profit margins a lot. That's a very important structure to consider to understand. And from here comes the most important factor, that what is then therefore the most important thing that we should worry about. The most important thing to worry about is your unit economics. What does it take you to basically make one pair of denim in your factory? What's that cost that you're going to entail and let's see if there are ways to reduce that particular cost structure by some kind of a fashion. Now, if we look at the way the way this entire thing works is, if you can reduce this cost of your manufacturing and your fabric, therefore you reduce your entire input cost. It actually ensures that you become more competitive than your other competing countries and economies that you're dealing with right now. That's where I would like to introduce our organization. That's where I would like to introduce ThreadSol and its products. So we are a very, very focused organization. We had to do a lot of convincing to the gentleman sitting right here that we deserve a place to stand here, and tell the manufacturing group of Bangladesh to embrace technologies which have not been heard of before in that sense. So let me introduce to you ThreadSol, which is a Singapore-based ID solutions company. Our job is essentially to work with the manufacturers and brands to reduce their cost of manufacturing at the buying and the cutting stage both. So we definitely would like to reduce the cost of manufacturing for all the people involved. And for doing that, we use a product called IntelliBuy, which is used to figure out what should be my consumption at the buying stage when there are lots of unknowns in my equations to deal with. That's IntelliBuy. And once the fabric comes in-house into your fabric stores and now you're cutting, that's when we start to use our product IntelliCut to ensure we can completely eliminate the wastages and stuff. Well, this is very important to understand that what you buy today is exactly what you need in the cutting floor. So if tomorrow you can ensure that in the cutting floor you are more efficient, you can go back and buy less, which would mean that if you're buying less fabric, you can actually pass on the benefit of lower cost of manufacturing to your customers and remain more competitively indexed vis-a-vis your other competing economies and companies. So that's the basic concept. So we got to be cost conscious, we got to be ensuring that we can save our fabric and thereby become more cost conscious and competitive. So let's see how that happens here. Today we are doing this manufacturing, planning for over 90 factories in 13 countries. Every day we plan 2.5 million garments in 13 different countries in 90 manufacturing facilities. We plan for everything from lingerie which is a 10 centimeters in consumption garment, to a tent, which is a 10 meters in consumption piece. So we can do with all kinds of garments: shirts, trousers, denim, bottoms, outerwear, innerwear, whatever. So we work with all of these things, and we have pretty much a global footprint in the last just 3 years. And Bangladesh definitely is one of our very, very important hunting grounds for us. One of the largest places, best place for business for us is actually Bangladesh. I mean, a lot of large customers are here for us. So let's move on here quickly because we have a time constraint as well. The point is, if you look at your where do you spend your entire cost of manufacturing? Right? If you're spending 1 rupee in your manufacturing today, then you're basically spending 70% of that, roughly around 70% of that in the fabric side. That's your biggest cost. And then of course your manufacturing, your production cost of your labor and everything else is your 30%. It depends based on every factory, it depends on every geography. It's a broad spectrum analysis. Please free to take it with a pinch of salt. For some of the manufacturers, as big as 80% of the fabric side, and some of the manufacturers I know, for example, in Turkey or let's say in Spain or Portugal, where it's like 50-50, 50% fabric and 50% is your wages, because the wages are very high in Europe and some parts of China as well. So the point is that this is your unit cost. If every unit of your denim is basically 70% of your cost is coming from the fabric side, and 30% from the manufacturing, all your sewing room and all your other facilities side, then what's your first target to look at? And let me just quickly point out one important story here, that so far the impetus has always been towards trying to be a higher efficient factory. I don't deny that fact. I think it's a great idea. That if today we are at 40% efficiency, tomorrow if we're 60% efficient factory, well, that's great news for me. I mean, I can produce more garments at the same cost, but it's still a rising cost, right? It's still a cost. Every person who's actually sewing on the floor is going to demand a higher salary the next year, and so on and so forth. So it's not really a game which will remain constant at this pitch forever. But if you look at the cutting side, it's not a very labor-intensive side as compared to sewing. So if you're able, and the Intello cut system, which actually runs your multiple factories, and inside the factories your cutting room and cutting tables, is a solution which ensures that whatever fabric you have bought, you can completely convert that into garments and not have wastages. That's a very important step which we do with Intello Cut. And then what we do is we feed the information of Intello Cut back into Intello Buy, so that we know whatever is happening on the floor is actually captured on the top, and then that's used for further fine-tuned decision making and stuff like that. So let me give you a typical use case of how this thing will work in a factory scenario. So let's say your customer gives you a 10,000 piece denim order, all right? But the problem is, whilst they give you the order for 10,000 pieces, they might not be able to tell you about the exact size breakdowns that they want, like small, medium, large, extra large, how many pieces in each sizes. They might not be able to give you that information up front. So how do you find that information? Well, it's almost like cricket. If I was to make a bet about how many runs will Tamim Iqbal score in tomorrow's game, let's say, against any opposition, I would like to look into Tamim Iqbal's historical performance against that particular opposition. So let's say Tamim Iqbal is playing against England. I'd like to see his last 20 performances against England and say, you know what, the average that he scores is 53 runs. Therefore, we should actually bet 53 runs for his score. Similarly, when we come at the buying stage, when we don't have the exact information about your exact sizes and quantities that your buyer is going to do, we can use the Intello Buy to figure out the information from your historical orders, and then run systems through which we can tell you that your one piece consumption cannot be achieved at less than 1.5 meters, and therefore 10,000 garments would require 15,000 meters of fabric. So that's something which we do up front at the Intello Buy stage. There are lots of other things, but we don't have a lot of time to delve deep into that, so I'm going to keep it right there. So for you, the takeaway is Intello Buy is a solution which is used by the manufacturers and the merchandisers at the buying stage. When we're deciding how much should be the consumption for me for every garment, at that stage we decide that, this is what the consumption should be for each garment that we're buying here. So that's Intello Buy's job here. And once we have got that information about how many meters of fabric we have to buy, that comes down to your factory at Intello Cut. And the cutting room, we ensure that we can take care of all the 10 different kinds of problems that fabric has. Your fabric will have variations in their lengths, your roll lengths. Your fabric will have variation in their width, shrinkage, defect, damage, shortage, excess. You will have roll cuts, roll joints. So all these problems are something which we can actually take care of in our Intello Cut software, and we can plan based on that, ensuring that we can have the least amount of wastage for each and every order. In fact, we can reduce the wastage to less than 1% in all the orders that we work with. If you do it manually today right now, manually the wastages are somewhere between 3 to 6% in each of these factories. It's because it's unfortunate, that's how it is, but there always be issues of wastage. But with the planning software which we do here, what we do is we look into all your production variables and we choose the best possible plan and we send to the floor on a tablet. So the person who are executing on the floor, they have a tablet in their hands, and whatever information is happening on the floor, we capture that. So we have the real-time feedback from each of the floor information, and then we can actually ensure that we can reduce the wastage less than 1%. So that's how the buying and cutting kind of combines together to ensure that we can buy right and we can cut right, and we can actually ensure that we can report right as well. Because you know what, for every order we will have the exact data on the floor from the table itself. Now let me kind of end this discussion with going back to the sheet. I mean, if you have the sheet, I would like you to have a look at the questions that you have. You know, it says 7 questions that can save you fabric cost. The first question in that sheet is, do you know how much fabric do you buy every year? If you are a merchandiser, if you are a business owner, if you are a person from the brand side, and if you do not know this information, well, you should know this information. All right, let me put it this way. You should definitely know this information. The second question is, what is your total fabric wastage percentage? Now, do you know this information as well? Because if you do not know this, then you do not know how much money you are throwing every year in these processes which you can control. So let's say a factory which is like buying $10 million of fabric every year, and it's got a 4% wastage. What is 4% of $10 million? That's $0.4 million, right? I mean, something like this. It's a lot of money that you are actually wasting. Do you know that number? And again, my question is, if you don't know it right now, maybe you should go back tomorrow to your factory and put this question to your cutting manager or your fabric manager and ask them to show you a proof for this in some sort of a document or report. They cannot give you an opinion. Like, an opinion is, how good is my hairstyle? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? I mean, I don't know. But that's an opinion, right? But I need a number from a report which says that, you know, my fabric wastage percentage is X%. Do you have that? Well, I think you should definitely have that. And then again, let's kind of drill down a bit. What percentage of your wastage due to part changes? Well, with every year, your brands and your customers are actually reducing their order quantity. So what used to be a 10,000 piece order is now a 5,000 piece order. Pretty soon it will be a 3,000 piece order, and so on and so forth. Yesterday you were doing 50 orders per day. Today you are doing 150 orders per day. 2 years from now you will be doing 300 orders per day. Ladies and gentlemen, think about this. What is your plan to run your factory with this kind of a problem in your hand? Do you want people to do it with Excel sheets by their manual processes and continue to be in the state in which you do not know these numbers? Think about this. If today you're doing 50 orders and you're doing a 5,000 piece order on average and you still don't know this information, do you think you will know this when you have 150 orders per day with the 1,000 piece order quantity? I don't think so. Now, what's your strategy for mitigating against this? Now, let me stop it right, this discussion right here, and tell you how to solve this, alright? If you know these answers to all of these questions, great. Congratulations, you are a good manufacturer. But if your answers are not up to your liking and you want to make it better, as in you want to reduce your wastage to less than 1%, that's booth number 3 where you can find me. Alright? If you think that you don't know these answers, you definitely need to pay a visit to us in booth number 3. Right? Anyway, the objective for us is very, very simple. The objective for us is actually to ensure that we can save this fabric on the floor in each of these orders. And you know what? This fabric that's saved shouldn't have been bought at the first place. And this is that fabric which is costing you more money for each denim that you produce every day. Now I want to think about that, and let me end this presentation with a very quick thing that the world has moved on a lot, right? And today the world is completely connected to each other. Our solutions are 100% today's technology. We work with the tablets on the floor. We work with internet connections on the it's Internet of the Things in the world. You will have mobile phone-based applications and reports in your hand. It's the new world in which we are bravely walking in. Now the point is, if you have to remain competitive for the denim industry in Bangladesh, that's the way to go forward. And that's the way I think we should be taking the step from here. And if you would like to have a conversation with us, we have a very large team here in Dhaka. And we are right now in this fair in booth number 3 right here. Please come and pay a visit. I wish that all of us can understand the fact that technology innovation and continuous upgradation of our current perspectives and processes are the only possible ways through which we can become more profitable in times to come.